Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. We have returned from the Jayhawk land with a loss 33-38. Kansas defeats the Sooners in what was a cold, wet, and just basically awful, awful day to experience as a Sooner fan. Sitting in the stands and seeing your team come up short in so many ways. We're going to have a lot to cover. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
Three of us were at the game, and we have got a lot to rant about. This entire pod is probably just going to be described as one gigantic realist rant. But before we get to that, let's talk about a couple things that were really good, and that starts with our sponsor, Tobacco Exchange, sponsor of the Postgame pods for this season. We really appreciate them. As you know, 3 great locations throughout the metro area, the best staff, the best pricing, and really the best opportunity to get your cigar that is right for you. We got something that we won't be able to enjoy because it's so cold and wet right now, and we're so worn out. We're not ready to smoke and enjoy it, but they gave us a Leaf by Oscar 10-year anniversary cigar, so we're really looking forward to that. We'll enjoy that when it's a sunnier, happier day. This is not a day to celebrate, though. One of the other things that I mentioned that was good was the flyover. It started with a really cool flyover today. A couple F-16s. They did some maneuvers, and they did a pregame, like a pre-pregame pass. Then they came over the national anthem, and there was 2 passes involved in that. They circled around and came back again. And then from there on, it just sucked.
Yep.
So I hope we're not just all over the page. We're going to cover a lot of things, but I want to make sure we kind of flesh all this out as partly just therapeutic and partly to get our minds around where we actually are as a football team and where we're headed to hopefully paint some realistic expectations. This was just awful all around. I would say every facet of the game was a disappointment. Not just the broad areas of offense, defense, and special teams, which would include, of course, coaching across the board, but every specific aspect and specific position groups had their moments of disappointment today. I don't know if you can come up with a good enough excuse about flu ravaging the team. It does not appear that was the case, actually. But it was like everyone was just taking a leave of absence from being disciplined, knowing their job, executing their job, and making good judgment calls across the board. Let's start with coaching, because that's the most vital and important part of it all. We had a lot to complain about, I think, today in terms of coaching and the shortcomings that we saw. Who wants to start, and what do they want to talk about?
I can kind of kick us off there. It was just, I think I said it a little bit, and maybe I just mentioned it last night at dinner, but a lot of this game was going to boil down to whether or not our coaching was where it needed to be, because talent-wise, we're the better team in every facet of the game. We got out-coached a lot today. I think we can all speak to some of the things that we saw, but Brent Venables kind of took the high road and fell on his own sword today after the game, blaming himself for the loss, when this entire thing boils down to one single person, and that is Jeff Lebby. And his just ineptness, his stubbornness, whatever you want to call it, cost us the game today. And it's just, I don't know, it's baffling to see a coach who is as highly touted as that guy coming into this job, who is, respected in this peer group as a great offensive mind, completely just not be able to define his offense. We've talked about it in the past. We're talking about it just for the pod, and we can maybe bring it up later, but he hasn't coached a number of games at OU where we've just left saying, man, that was a stellar offensive performance. And then when he has, the Florida State game last year, the Iowa State game this year, there's never been a strong sense of him building off of that success that he has. It's like a one-off thing, and then we go back into the shell and are completely unproductive. So that's my rant on that side of the coaching. Lucas, what else from a coaching standpoint did you see?
Inconsistencies on defense, of course, today, which we've been happy with the defense all season. It seemed like not having Gentry Williams was a major blow today. when it was in crunch time, we had them down to the 4th and 10. Brent didn't call timeout. We were in our section. There was about 10 or 12 of us yelling, call timeout. Didn't happen. Brent, after the game, said he wishes he would have called timeout.
It was clearly the right call at the time. Jay, that one of Jay's notes that he sent to me was about he called it idiotic decision to call a timeout rather than take the delay of game at one point, and then
in the second half.
In the second half, and
Yep.
so you look at a couple, and we'll go back to these when we really cover the very end of the game. But these decisions on when to and then not taking a timeout when it's so clear that you should. I mean, it's.
I mean, we were a little. That's why my voice is hoarse. Was mainly yelling,
timeout,
call timeout, Brent. I kept going.
It's
Yell,
fourth
call
down.
timeout, Brent.
If you stop them,
the game is over. Yes.
It is worth burning a timeout. Plus, it stops the clock in a way that's helpful for you because you're probably and did need to get the ball back.
Yep. But, and then, so on that final play, Kenai Walker kind of lost his guy, and they ended up catching the ball on the sideline and getting the first down. And then, I don't know, what was that, 50-yard line-ish? So with minute and a half left or something like that. So that was coaching blunders. It didn't seem like we got as much push from the defensive line today for some reason. Now, there were a bunch of non-holding calls, especially in the final 2 drives. We'll get to that later. But not having Danny Stutzman in the second half definitely hurt, even though Kip Lewis looked really good. In the first half, Kanik was in the right position a lot and never made the tackles, it felt like. Many times we were getting him, within a yard or two of the line of scrimmage is where he was at, and just getting either completely whiffing or, just maybe touching their leg and then running past him.
That was another one of Jay's notes is that Kanik's not ready and Kip is clearly better.
Yeah, and then so the second half there was a lot of Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie in there. I saw Brent yelling in Kanik's, right in his face after a missed tackle in the first half, and kind of stood him on the sideline in timeout. I don't know. There's so many problems today that it's like you said, we're gonna be all over the place, just stream of consciousness because there's so much wrong, and we didn't get a chance to take notes like we normally do during the game because of the rain. So it's going to be more just free flowing, jumping around.
So, and of course, we discussed this after the game on a 5-hour drive home from the game.
In the rain the whole way on the way home.
Yeah, the rain the whole way. And so we hopefully can cover everything that most everyone else knows, probably. I think everyone, as we reach out and are talking to friends and other people, and we're seeing it on Twitter, everybody's keying in on the same stuff. Keeping it around coaching for the moment, one of the things that's very clear is Jeff Lebby is highly responsible for how pathetic the situation was today.
Yep.
And it really draws into concern, and I'm going to ask the question, should he be on the official hot seat? Should he be in a position where he needs to fight for his job? I think he should.
Absolutely. I mean, and I know some people may kind of wince at that. It's our first loss of the season. But again, this has been trouble in the making for a while. I mean, you go back to the Texas game. Yeah, we win the game, amazing, emotional win. We're stalled out for most of the middle of that game.
Yep. Something that we pointed out, and I spent a lot of time pointing out to everyone who was basking in the glory of it all, to say, you would not be feeling this way if certain things didn't happen.
Yep.
And yeah, you can say these certain things did happen and things looked great because of it, and you can be proud of actually accomplishing something, but keep in mind, you didn't have to be in that position. And both Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby put us in that position in that game, and we'll get to Gabriel in a bit, we saw a lot of that today with things that Jeff Lebby was doing strategically. It seemed like he didn't have an understanding of exactly what was going to be effective or why it was going to be effective.
He has no idea. There's no sort of, I mean, we've talked about rhythm a lot. There's just such a lack of identity of what we want to be as an offense. Like, we were talking about it in the car on the ride home that you just mentioned, is all this pre-snap movement and trying to, confuse the defense and stuff. It looks completely gimmicky, and it looks like something that a team like Kansas should have to do to be effective. And you said it well in the car. Teams that have a noticeable talent deficit are the teams that do that kind of crap. We should not have to do that. And some of the personnel decisions, it's just...
And I don't know what
baffling.
it does.
I have no
The
idea.
personnel decisions, and that is something that is obviously a coaching decision. Stogner is playing way too much. He's just playing way too much. We are having a running back. We're having a wide receiver line up as running back. It caused a fumble today.
After we'd run the ball perfectly right down the field on the previous drive.
An actual running back.
Walker
With an
did
actual running
so
back.
good today,
Yeah.
and we go away from it, and that was before his injury, right?
That was before his injury.
Yeah, and so
Well, we run Fruit back there, and then I think we're running Freeman back there some
Yeah.
without. I mean, I know this is stuff you work on in practice, like you say, but you have a running back who's finally being productive, and you're choosing to break his rhythm.
Well, this is game 8 of
He
the
had
season.
97 yards
You
at
shouldn't
halftime.
be figuring this stuff out now. This should have already percolated to some solutions weeks ago, so that you have an understanding of what you can and can't do, should and shouldn't do. And if you're going to put a guy that's small, like a wide receiver back there, but who's fast, run him to the outside if that's what you think you lack. But what's funny is we're not lacking breakaway speed. We're lacking somebody even getting to the second level. So it's not an issue unless it's quickness, and we don't have the right quickness at running back, and I don't think that's the case. I think we have a lack of vision and maybe a lack of coaching to show them where the hole is going to develop and what to look for, and quit second guessing yourself and double cutting, triple cutting. Gabriel had many moments today where he was on what would have been a successful run. Instead of just running, he is cutting back and forth and getting caught.
Yeah, he looked like he was stuck in mud today. It was tough to watch.
We said on the pregame pod, I said on the pregame pod that I was really hoping that against this defense we would try to get outside more with the running backs, and instead it was jet sweep left, jet sweep right, jet sweep left, and then it was
Or throw to the man in motion.
Drake's in
who's
motion,
Drake
and you throw it to him behind the
sweeping.
line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Gabriel was 11 of 19 today, and one of the stats.
No, he was 14 of 19.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I mean, I got the stats.
And
right
I would
here.
bet
14 of 19.
half of those were basically
12
well,
Tosses.
yeah, tosses, and that doesn't include the one or two that were backwards passes that
Yeah.
count as runs,
Yeah.
but they're basically the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, I think you were about to say it.
Yeah.
Going into that last drive, he had only thrown 12 passes the entire game.
Yeah.
That's insane. And I
And-
get it's raining and crap, but
And out of those 12, only 2 of them were further than like 7 or 8 yards.
Right.
Everything was the sideways or, I mean,
everything was sideways.
Everything was sideways.
Everything was sideways or a toss. And like that, for the listeners out there and everyone else, that is why we've been critical. And again, a lot of this is play calling. A lot of it is Jeff Lebby. But I think a lot of the play calling, to Steve, what you were saying earlier as well
hindered.
today, is Gabriel's limitation in not being able to throw the ball down the field.
So I wanted to transition to Gabriel because we're already naturally getting there. Yeah, I think that's a really big quandary, is to figure out how much of it is Lebby, how much of it is Gabriel. I don't know how much check down or different options Gabriel has outside of when he's actually executing in the play. He definitely, my term was, he went into his shell today. Not a shell, his shell. Mm-hmm. He went into his tunnel vision. I'm looking for the safety valve. I'm looking for the dump off route. I'm checking all the way down to Stoops. Where's Stoops? Find Stoops. And it's not effective. Obviously it just stands to reason that that's not going to be a successful way to execute an offense, especially when it's struggling and needs production. But this side-to-side stuff, I don't know if that's Lebby and can't figure out a way to get Dillon to throw the ball down the field, or if he just has no confidence in him throwing the ball down the field. We saw a few routes that were successful today, but again, he waits so long to see a guy that's open. He hits late in the game on the last drive of the game. It's critical. You have to have... No, it wasn't the last drive of the game when he hit...
Nick Anderson. It was the next to last drive.
Next to last drive. And it was a great pass. He was wide open.
Not
it
the
was
next to last, but one of those drives in the fourth quarter.
It was a very important drive. We definitely needed to go down and score if we could. And he waits so long and then he happens to pop open. What you don't see on the TV probably is the wide open nature of Thompson on that same play. And that he
had ran right past his guy.
He had run right past his guy.
Yeah.
And then on the very next play is when they run, right?
Yeah.
When the safety, there's no safety help. And there was no safety help most of the game.
No high safety.
They no high safety.
Yeah.
They just came up to do run protection. And it's like we don't see that
Some of it was weather today.
or know what to do.
Which I understand you're not going to throw a ton of balls downfield in the pouring rain.
But how about a couple?
It didn't. It only poured for moments of the game.
Right.
It was just a steady, lighter rain most of the game.
Cold and wet.
But it's Dylan Gabriel doesn't throw the ball deep in general very well, but you would think some intermediate routes would be possible in the rain because we saw Kansas throw the ball in the rain, and you would say you'd take Dylan Gabriel over Jason Bean anytime.
Yeah.
But yet they were able to get open on some intermediate, 12 to 18-yard routes, which we didn't. The only one I can remember was even close was the Stogner one, and then there was one to
12
Stoops,
yards,
I think,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with these sideways passes. We do them so often. We haven't had a successful one go for chunk yardage all season.
No. And you've got
At all.
speedsters.
Or the jet sweeps.
And we run, or the jet sweeps. We run them. I think our last successful jet sweep was Gavin Freeman's touch last season in the first game of the year.
Yeah.
We do not get yardage off of those plays.
So we don't get giant yardage.
Right.
We get 5 and 7 yard gains.
Yeah.
But we made the comment today that every time we do that, it's almost disappointing because you're running a long way to get 5 yards. And you're stretching a guy out that's a little bit at risk because he's running laterally. So I think fumble risk is a little bit higher. And it just, the cost-benefit analysis doesn't seem to work out really well.
Threw a pick six
here.
on it today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a direct sideways, but it's 3rd and 1. But I mean, it's Farouk's running like a 2-yard little.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Jeff Levy said that
aspect
was
of
an
it.
RPO, so he essentially threw Dylan Gabriel under the bus on that.
Yeah, he totally
Levy
did.
said that was an RPO. I should have just called a handoff, essentially is what he said. And Dylan trying to make that throw to the sideline, he doesn't have the arm strength to
It
make
was
that
an
throw.
exceptionally bad decision. He stared it down the whole way, and
waited too long.
Waited too long because
and
he
I don't
waits
even know if he
the
was
guy
past
open.
the sticks or not. It was like 3rd and 2, and it was maybe a 3-yard route or something.
Wouldn't shock me if he was not.
I think it was a little deeper than that, but regardless,
Yeah.
it was an awful decision. He throws it too late. If it's a comeback route that's going to work, the ball's got to be out before he makes his move.
Yeah, and Lucas, exactly what you said. He doesn't have the arm strength to be doing stuff like that. And that's another thing that we've been saying for all season. Like, we've seen some of those throws go to the sideline like that, and we are all holding our breath because it looks like it's about to be a pick six.
So his zone reads are seemingly just very poor, or he can't do them, and he's not allowed to do them.
I think
don't
the zone
know.
reads are handoff, probably 90. They're not zone reads. They're just handoff
they're
that look like zone reads
decisions.
90% of the time.
And he makes mistakes with those, or the play. I mean, well, the nature of that is you basically they can be successful like a normal handoff, but the whole concept of a zone read is you give the guy at the position the decision-making authority to decide what to do. And so if you're not going to give him that authority, don't run that play.
Yeah.
Run something that sets
He's
up
played
better.
enough college football to be able to tell if the defensive end is crashing down on whether he should keep the ball or not.
But I also don't understand, and we talked about it a little bit during the game, but our successful quarterbacks have been smart in the past. I think Gabriel's a smart guy. Jeff Levy never checks out of those plays when we have potential mismatches once the defense lines up. So, I mean, Brennan Thompson was lined up one-on-one with a guy, and again, no high safety. And all he has to do is run by him, which he will.
And all you have to do is throw the ball up.
Just straight draw. We never check out of runs to check into something better.
Nick Anderson had 4 inches of height on the corner that was on him for most of the game.
2 targets.
And they had a safety on that side, but they would send a Stogner in motion, and then the safety would shift further in because of having to maybe cover Stogner coming out. And we never once tested that guy with Nick Anderson throwing the ball up to him, even though he's got a huge height and reach advantage over the corner, that you could have just run a 8-yard stop route and him turn around and just throw the ball to him and see what happens because he's got the height and reach on him.
Absolutely.
Not that you need to do that every time, but
No,
you
just
could have
take
run that
advantage of
4
it.
times a game and taken
Right.
advantage until they start rolling that safety over, and then you're opening the run game because the safety's not coming up.
How many offensive plays did we have roughly today? And we always, because we run quick, we have lots of offensive plays. As you're looking that up, I bet we can find quite a few plays that are so undesirable in terms of what you expect to get out of them, and you're running them so many times. It's easy to say, well, here's 10 or 15 plays we can remove and replace with these things you're talking about. It's not like you're saying there's only one football to go around, so what do you want to give up to get it? I want to give up all of this crap that is not productive, it's not being productive, and it's actually giving the defense a complete get out of jail free card by not having to cover the entire field.
Had 74 offensive plays.
74. I guarantee you we can find 15 of those that just by design are easily replaced with something else that we're talking about here that we didn't see one version of today. It's very troubling. I hate to be down on a specific kid, but it's the most important position on the field. And we've been saying it for a while. We've been taking a lot of heat with people we talk to and engagements on Twitter. I think we're being proven right, sadly. Dylan Gabriel is above average, and that's it. He is, if you look back at the quarterbacks that we've had at this university over the past 20, 25 years, he's going to be middle of the pack.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not pressing to be above that. Now, when it comes back again to Coach Levy, you have to say, well, you know what you're working with. How do you make that most effective and you're successful with it? And do you need to do something by thinking about Jackson Arnold and where you might incorporate him into your offense? I don't know what the deal is with that. It seems like they are going to redshirt him. Their lack of playing him at all. He did try to come in last game, and they enforced a timeout by UCF. So it appears he was going to get his 4th game in.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just really, really confusing to me that they can't find a way out of this. But it comes back to, I'm not sure Jeff Lebby is very capable here.
Yep.
I think we're seeing his shortcomings. He's very unproven, and he doesn't have, his resume doesn't look real good. It's not filled with a lot of accolades beyond potential.
Yeah.
It looks like
and the
all
people
potential.
the people he's been around have, I think, definitely propped him up.
Well, let's transition a little bit and talk about some other things that weren't very good today. Second week in a row that tackling was a problem. A lot of missed tackles, getting away from the gang tackling that we were coming to be known for this season. That's disappointing. I think that injuries are definitely playing into this. We've got some definitely very concerning injuries with Gentry and Stutzman. One of Jay's notes was he thinks that he said there's no way you're going to tell me that Key and Pearson are better than Bowen.
No way.
And so that's
Bowen
a
was
confusing
injured
thing.
today.
Bowen was banged up.
But he was
Yeah.
banged up.
Yeah.
He was banged up today. So it again back to injuries. It's going to be interesting to see how we can where we go from here and what we do in terms of either replacing some guys and getting them healthy. It does go back to something that I wanted to see. One of my hopes was coming into these last 6 games on the schedule was doing really well and resting guys and keeping
Not
them
having to play all
not
game.
having to play them, keeping them healthy. None of that's happening. The opposite is happening. It's really concerning and very bad, and that it just comes home to roost for sure. Well, what do you guys think about? Let's talk about the turnovers first. Turnovers very critical today. Farouk, not to blame Farouk at all. He happened to be involved in all 3 of them, but I don't really think any of them were really his fault. You had you're lining him up as a running back, and he gets completely smashed, and he coughs up the ball. In that situation, we had the kickoff to us, which they did exactly to us what we had been trying to do, and then did to them, which was cause them to have a potential, in fact, a fumble. So they fumble a kickoff on that side that was into the wind, and they did the same thing to us, and we did the same botched thing.
But
Farouk was right.
their return man dropped it.
Yeah.
We had a defensive lineman. Explain to me why Marcus
I don't know
Stripling,
why Marcus Stripling is in that position.
I have no idea either.
That's a massive coaching
That's literally a
mistake as
defensive
well.
lineman that you've got to catch the ball in front of your return man. But
I think
again,
he's
it's
supposed to
into the
just be
wind.
there for blocking.
Right.
But you've got to be prepared to figure out, like, why is Farouk lined up that far deep?
Well, Farouk had time. Farouk needs to be running up and telling him move,
And
like,
get
call him off like a
call him
center fielder.
ball. Yeah,
Yeah.
call him off. Like,
But you don't have to have the full shift on, but you have to know where the ball's probably going to go.
Yep.
And it's okay to back up if they happen to kick one unexpectedly deep into bad circumstances for a kicker. So, and then I'm blanking. What is the third turnover?
the pick six.
No, the pick six. That was the target
Thrown
was
to
Farouk.
Farouk, yeah.
And I don't think Farouk did anything wrong there.
No.
I think he executed just so correctly.
I got to blame him for the fumble. I mean, yeah, he's been put in a crappy position to be a wide receiver at running back, but you've still got the ball in your hand. You should be able to hold on to it. I know he's undersized, and
I guess,
again,
except it's just such
shouldn't
a
be in that position, but hang on to the
positioning. Yeah, true.
ball. He fumbled the one in the kickoff in Tulsa.
Yeah,
So it's not completely uncalled, unseen before.
that's true. So, what do you guys think about officiating? I'd say that at this point, it's so clear, and I have a position on it that I think is a little different than most, but they're either remarkably ignorant and bad at their jobs, or they're crooked, or some combination. And I'm in the some combination where it's 80% incompetence, 20% crooked, and only in the case of I think they have a strong bias
There's a
against
bias,
OU.
right.
I don't think the fix is in. We all make jokes. I don't think what's his name?
Yormark's-
The commissioner.
I don't think Yormark took a phone call during the couple calls today.
I don't think that's happening. But I do think that they are deliberately choosing to look deliberately or inadvertently through their bias look the other way on things that would be helpful for OU and see things with a little weighted justice for sure.
We did
instead
get
of
one holding call
balance.
today.
We did.
They
It was
ran
critical.
for a touchdown.
Yep.
It was the correct call. I
So
think
it-
it was so blatant that they had to call it.
I guess.
But
And
I saw about
otherwise
four.
that pushes back against the strong conspiracy
Yeah.
theory people.
I saw about
'Cause that
four
would
of
be
those
when
in the final two drives that were plain
Yes.
as day should have been called
I
and,
agree.
and weren't. So that
So
was
I don't
not
I think
surprising.
I think that and the fact that the touchdown by Walker he then loses the ball. It's not a fumble.
after he crossed the goal line.
They could have or Sawchuk. They could have ruled that a fumble if the fix was in
Yeah.
and would have. But otherwise, no. It's just so pathetic. So we had, I guess, the most egregious one in terms of just shaking our heads thinking they got it wrong, and maybe we're wrong, was on the tipped ball that was, it was tipped by Trace Ford,
Yep.
and then Billy Bowman doesn't touch it.
Right.
And even if he does, it doesn't matter because the receiver has his left foot still out of bounds. The only argument I think you could have is if Billy touches it, maybe his toes are off the ground, and he's coming back to establish position because his right foot is inbounds. However, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding you need 2 feet in to establish position, not 1. I need to ask. I'll try to get an
According to
answer
what
on
they
that.
said after the game, they said his right foot was all he needed to do to reestablish himself in bounds.
Which is, we don't think that even happened
Right.
to begin, and they came back with a confusing, to me, confirmed rather than insufficient evidence
Stands.
to over it
Yeah.
stands, and I don't think there was anything to confirm it. So that I could see the fact that you ruled it one way on the field and you're going to stick with it because it's a blurry image and it's difficult, but and we'll have to get clarification on if it's 1 feet or 2 feet. But I thought it was 2 feet. I thought it takes 2.
And they acted like because Trace Ford touched the ball, that it throws out the fact that he has to reestablish before he can't be the first
what
one.
they said on the field.
That normally you can't be the first one to touch the ball.
Right.
I have seen instances where the team has gotten a turnover on a fumble situation, and a wide receiver has come back in and then touched the ball, and they said illegal touching because he was out of bounds and wasn't the first one to touch the ball, or what was the first one to touch the ball after a fumble by the defense that had recovered. And so, to me, I don't understand the difference in Trace Ford touching the ball and the quarterback throwing the ball. But that may just be a rule that we don't know.
No, I think that is it's once the ball is in the air, that's when it has to, you can't be the first one to touch it if you're out of bounds. So the quarterback doesn't count.
But it's been the same on, if a running back fumbles the ball, a wide receiver that's out of bounds can't jump in and touch it.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with the ball being in the air.
Well, that's in the air. It's loose. The ball is not being possessed in either case, I think is the deal. But it was bad. The officiating and we see bad officiating the more we watch and throughout all the leagues. It is a big problem, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't think we see it in the SEC. I don't think you see it in the Big Ten. But, man, the officiating's bad throughout the rest of the leagues, the conferences in college. It is just a problem, and I think it's something that is a growing problem for the sport if they don't get it corrected. It's embarrassment. It's changing games. And this is not to make an excuse for what happened today. I think that we could have overcome all of that, and you could say that, OU's woes, we're clearly saying OU's woes are not because of bad officiating. It's because of OU's problems. Let's talk about the end of the game, because I think that's an interesting one to dive into, to really get into the coaching missed bad decisions, and not to overemphasize or dwell on it. But I thought that, to give them a little bit accolade, I thought they did a pretty good job of understanding the time left in the game and what they needed to do and how many times they might need to get the ball back. And they were running clock appropriately, and including being hurry up when you kind of needed to have some urgency.
Yep.
In the third to last, second to last drives. But just getting the gift of a turnover, of an interception, which they got after they dropped an interception.
Key Lawrence.
Which is remarkable.
Right in his hands.
Right in his hands. And to get that gift and then not know that you still need to be aggressive, rather instead try to just play not to lose, was such a big, colossal coaching mistake. Now, the other thing that might be criticized there a little bit is, I'm not sure, but I think they probably were being appropriately aggressive, because in that, not just that drive, but the last two for Kansas, you need to be aggressive because you don't want them to go down the field slowly and get a field goal to win it. You want them either to get off the field right now or go ahead and score, which they did. But you get that gift, and instead of, in the postgame interview really revealed this. It was my prediction. Their number one goal was just to make Kansas use their timeouts. Mm-hmm. As if getting a first down wasn't going to be important until they had to be in that position. But that was a wrong way to look at it. That myopic thinking led us to run 3 exceptionally conservative plays that had very little chance of success, and it's compounded by the fact that once the first one doesn't work, the next one is not going to work even more so. If you're getting 3 yards on those carries, well, yeah, now you're going to be really close after 3 plays. But when you're getting 1, it's not going to get you there.
Yeah,
and then
you're up by 1 point too. It's like,
yeah,
you're not.
Consider the game tied.
Yeah, I mean it's just that the whole sequence after the interception and those 3 and out.
We went -1 run,
baffling.
Timeout, -1 run, timeout. Then we got
Dillon Gabriel
did not.
We
had a
false start.
No,
that was on 4th.
No, that was on 4th.
That was on 4th. Okay,
so Dillon Gabriel should just run, but
Yep.
he does a double cutback and gets tackled, and so now it's 4th and 7, I believe, and we line up to go for it, which I liked the call. I liked the aggression, but Anderson, I think it was going to be a throw to Anderson, and he jumped.
I think they were finally going to try to abuse the corner that was way shorter than him and maybe throw it up to him. He gets a false start, and then we decide to punt. Let's talk about the punt.
So it's 4th and 12, and I do think probably the right decision there is to punt. 4th and 12 is hard to get. Although if you're going to throw that pass, you pretty much can throw that pass on 4th and 12 as well as 4th and 7. So I don't know. It's easy to say now that we've lost the game, I'd like him to do something different, but I wouldn't have been completely mad if they would have tried to go for it there.
Yep.
So we go to punt, and I don't understand why they're not practicing this. Kicking the ball to the end zone is the same as kicking it out of bounds at the 20-yard line.
Yep.
Why are you trying to pin the ball deep with which was not successful?
No margin of error. If
No
you're
margin of
aiming
error.
between the 5 and the goal line.
You've got to get down there and catch it. And I understand the concept, and I see the pros do it, and they're very good. But you're dealing with college players and a lot of funky elements today. So basically they get fooled by the return man. They come up too far, and they miss it. It hits it about the 5 and then rolls into the end zone. Kick the damn ball to the corner where it's going to go out at the 10-yard line. I don't care if it goes out at the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
If it goes out at the 15, I might start complaining that you could be better at that job, but it's still better.
It's still better.
And you just kick it, even if you're going to try to kick it where it hits inbounds, but right there on the sidelines. They're not going to walk, and if it happens to go out of bounds, they're not going to cheat you and walk all the way to the 25-yard line with it. They may get it wrong by a couple of yards, but you're still going to be a net winner in that situation, and you're going to pin them 90 yards back instead of 80.
Yep.
That was really, really disappointing, and continues to be disappointing as so many woes in our kicking game continue to plague us, for sure. What else about the end of the game do we need to talk about?
I mean, I like that we let. I mean, Venables came out and said he let Kansas score once they got down there.
That was
inside
great.
The 5. I mean,
Good
that's
job.
great, but it's one
Proves
of those
we
things where it's
practiced
just
that,
like,
too.
it's just like too little, too late.
And how many timeouts do we have at that point? We had 2.
We had 2.
You know why we didn't have 3 timeouts?
I do, because we noticed it, and I yelled about it, and Jay noticed it, and he yelled about it apparently at his TV, because they chose, after they took a delay of game, trying to draw Kansas offside
On a 4th down.
early in the third quarter,
On 4th down.
in a tight game, where you know you're going to probably need your timeouts. They
The first thing they did the first time right.
Yeah. The only thing I'd argue they didn't do right was execute it all the way. When it's 5 seconds left on the clock, don't look over to the sideline and just start walking away or whatever, where it's clear what you're doing. Go ahead and
Try to
run
draw them
all the way
offsides
through.
twice.
Try to
Yeah.
draw them offsides.
It's 4th and 5, and we try to draw them off sides.
If one of those guys is looking at the clock and decides
Yeah.
to try and time it, he's going to be offsides.
So then we take the delay of game instead of calling timeout. Fine, you go 5 yards back, you're punting, you're at midfield. That's the right thing to do. And then we send our punt team out there.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. We're missing a guy. Guy runs on the field. I don't remember who it was.
Jacoby Johnson. And we take another delay of game, or what should have been a delay of game, but we burn a timeout instead.
With just seconds to go,
Yeah.
how do you not know you just did this same thing?
Yes.
Why would you take a timeout?
5 more yards
Why would
would
you
not
take
have
a
been
timeout?
that big of a deal on this punt. We ended up punting it, if I remember right, to the 13. So all in all, if everything worked out the same, they would have had the ball in the 18,
Not
and
a
we still would have
material
had we would have had another timeout.
And we'd have that timeout.
So come at the end of the game when we get the ball with 55 seconds left or whatever it ended up being, with 2 timeouts, instead we have 3 timeouts, and then as the end unfolds, we end up having to throw it in the end zone on 2nd down or whatever it was on the last play. But also, on that drive, Dylan throws a ball to Barnes
in the flat.
that is on just he's the check down
He's
guy.
a check down guy.
He throws it at his feet.
Yep.
No one's around him.
No one's around him. So if he hits him in the chest, Barnes maybe gets 10 or 12 yards and runs out of bounds.
Or more.
Which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So it would have stopped the clock.
Yep.
Instead, Barnes has to dive for the ball.
And catches it.
He doesn't get to play enough, and he doesn't get enough practice because he's the never get the ball running back.
Yeah.
That he goes down instinctually and catches the ball, dives to catch the ball on the ground for a 2-yard gain or whatever it was, and we have to use a timeout at that point.
Which I don't think we did have to at that, because I think we got a holding call there. We got a holding call on that play that backed us up 10 yards, so it stopped the clock anyways.
Yeah, I think it was on that one.
But I don't know, because wouldn't there have been a 10-second runoff?
Yeah, or we
I don't
had
think
to
there was a
use
holding
it.
call on that
Yeah, I
play.
think
No,
you're
there
thinking of the
was.
dry.
No, there was. We got backed up 10 yards on that play.
No, the holding call was on was it not on the return?
That was on the play before, I thought, because didn't Drake get the first down on the next play and then put Barnes in that situation?
No, let me just check what you guys.
Well, look it up. But all of that stands about Barnes and the poor throw
Yeah.
from Gabriel relates to one of Jay's points, or it's directly related. So he says,
It's crunch time.
You don't play Barnes all year, and then all of a sudden he's the crunch time running back.
Yeah, Matwire had a holding call on that play.
And I guess, okay, well, I guess when you're down on running backs the way they apparently are, that you're left with him as the running back, not Sawchuk. I don't understand it. I just don't know. I don't get it. So just so much of what we would like to see out of this team with what they've already accomplished and what they've shown is coming up so short here at mid-season and pushing into the back half of the season, and when it is critical time, it really is concerning because I don't know where we're headed and what we'll actually be able to achieve. And so then I think that's kind of the next question is where do we go from here? What are our expectations? Let's start with something that we sometimes end with, which is what is your prediction for our record? How has it changed now? We're 7-1.
I don't know how we don't lose another one. I don't know how BYU, I know Kansas beat BYU, but I don't know how we go into Provo.
Oh, that's not the game I fear.
I fear next week as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma State, and that I didn't want to say it because they look good, man, and we don't.
They've learned how to run the ball.
We're trending in separate.
Gordon is incredible.
We're trending in separate directions, especially offensively. We've talked about how OU should be able to put points up and put yards up against these subpar defenses,
And we're not.
and we can't. We're not. Everything offensively looks hard for us right now.
Yep.
And
No confidence in the
there's
offense.
no confidence, and the coaching staff is not allowing players to gain confidence because they're rotating people in and out and not putting in guys that probably should be in there. And then when they are in there, they're not getting the ball. So I don't know. I mean,
So where are you, 10-2?
I'll say 10-2 just to keep it a little bit optimistic. But it wouldn't shock me if it moves to 9-3 or
So
if we finish 9-3.
So I'll echo that. I've got to say the expectation's 10-2, but I think there's a slightly greater chance we're 9-3 than that we're 11-1.
We're not showing any hope of getting better.
What do you think, Lucas?
I agree completely. I would say 10-2. We probably lose to OSU next week, but I don't think the other two games or other three games. I don't know that any of them are any good, but it is a higher chance of being 9-3 than it is 11-1.
It's going to be really tough
For sure.
to be 11-1. And if you get into that position, and I definitely want us to be in that position, you're facing a difficult task in the conference title game. So it does not get easier from here. In fact, keeping your focus is going to be something that's going to be very difficult. One of the things that I'm optimistic about that we saw today as we were exiting right near the players' locker room, and we saw a couple of the players come out, and they looked angry. They didn't look sullen. They didn't look sad. They didn't look ashamed. They didn't look beaten. They looked pissed.
We saw Isaiah Coe and Jordan Kelly and Todd Bates was there too.
They looked like they know that they left things unfinished, and they're underachieving, and they're better than this. So I saw some fire in that, and I'm excited about it. I hope that I'm not just reading into it as a homer, but I think that there's a chance to get things back on the right page. It's going to take some changes, though. It's not just like its attitude. And I have to say, and I've never liked this line of reasoning that people give. Everybody wants to say they're going to, quote unquote, chew their ass at halftime, and they have a million other obnoxious little metaphors and things they like to throw out there. It's not about that, and that's not our problem right now. It's not these guys that are lazy or not motivated. It's coaching that is putting them in bad positions and not giving them the right tools to execute. Certainly, we've got player problems, like you always do, where players are not perfect, they're not executing well. Yeah. it's not a matter of yelling at them though, and like, oh, really? I didn't understand that I wasn't supposed to miss my assignment, miss a tackle, not execute on offense. Now that you yelled at me, I'm going to go do it exactly right. That's not how it works. And I think in particular in this game, that's really not what the problem was. The problem was, and the problem with this team is coaching that is not getting the team into the right winning mindset and winning opportunity set.
Yep. Well, and again, I you guys may have touched on it. I just didn't hear it, but back to the coaching real quick is the fourth down that Kansas has on their last offensive drive, where we have an opportunity to win the game, and we had those 2 timeouts that you guys mentioned, and that's when we choose not to use the timeout. So it's just stuff like that, and I know that Brent is still learning some of this stuff, and it's a process in and of itself. But I agree holistically with what you said, Steve. I think a lot of this, where we're at right now, can be very much chalked up to the coaching and the positions that they're not putting us in to win. So
it's definitely very worrisome. It's hard to be optimistic about it. And partly that's because we fed the monster and our expectations are higher, but that's the nature of the beast. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to have mediocre expectations. We're trying to pursue excellence. And excellence is something that is tough to achieve and tougher to achieve as you really get towards it. Yep. So I think we're seeing some of that, and maybe we just need to be a little bit patient as fans. Maybe we need to understand this is just year 2. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of holes to be filled. In another off season, another recruiting class, another age of maturity, that everything's a lot better coming into next year. I'm just tired of waiting. But, and I guess to support that, we do seem to lack a lot of seniority, experience seniority that is going to bring that maturity that you want out of that group and help you make, I don't know, as a cohesive unit, decisions made on the field. You just, that lack of true experienced leadership, I think, is showing a little bit right now.
I'm going to say I've given up on the offense for this year. I don't think we'll get to a point with 4 games left that this offense will show me anything that I think should happen.
I agree with you.
The defense
completely.
is still dependent on, hopefully, recovery from injury. If Stutzman misses significant time, we're in trouble. If Gentry Williams doesn't get back in significant time and misses, then we're in trouble. Peyton Bowen, even though he's a true freshman, the kid has shown every time he's on the field he makes plays. Pearson's going to miss the first half of next week because he got a unsportsmanlike conduct for diving at a quarterback who decided to slide short of the end zone
and late
and
sudden.
And as he dove in, he turned his back, and apparently hitting the back of your shoulder anywhere around their head neck area is a penalty, which he was literally trying to avoid the contact after he inexplicably slid shy of the end zone. So
very questionable
that's a call I'll never understand.
Very questionable.
And so he's going to miss the first half of next week because that was in the second half of this game. So hopefully Bowen can play. We're going to need all the help we can get against Ollie Gordon. If Canick's out there missing tackles, Gordon's going to have another 200 yards. He had almost 300 today.
He had 196 today.
I saw 270, I think.
He ran for more after that?
I saw 270 earlier.
He ran for quite a bit right at the end of that game.
If you want to look it up.
Jeez.
But
I think
we're going to need all the help we
right.
can get on defense. If Stutzman and Gentry are out, I don't see any way we hold OSU under 35, and I have zero confidence in this offense of ours that we're going to score 35.
I think you really nail it, and I'd have to say I don't see any reasonable way you disagree with either of those two positions. Same on special teams. I don't see him getting any better. I don't really see how that could get to a point where we have much confidence in the aspects, really the kicking game, kicking the ball, field goal, and punting. That's going to just continue to plague us. Yet, offensive confidence, there's no reason to have that confidence. we're going to continue to see them run this, what seems like a more and more limited playbook, with filling it with plays that don't have a lot of upside potential.
Yep.
Not that it would be much better, but at least if you're throwing the ball deep every play, you've got the chance that one of those is a home run. Jet sweeps are not going to be home runs.
We've got 6
guys.
different ways you can run a jet sweep, handoff, or pass.
Yeah.
And 0 of those 6 different ways of playing have done us any good this year.
Yeah, very very minimal production, very minimal production, and it doesn't add up to much. Like you're grasping at straws for that occasional 5-7 yard gain to hang your hat on there. That's just not enough for as hard as you're working on that play. Another thing, not to get back into the weeds of the details here, but it is when we're talking about the motion that they're doing. It seems like they're running to the wrong direction after they put the motion there. And again, it's like that conservativeness that I think is a hallmark of Levy. He wants so many blockers out. And is that because he's coached at lesser places? That now, I mean, UCF back in the day, their schedule was so soft. I don't know if you'd really consider them playing, above their head in terms of competition. But when he was in the SEC, I could see maybe you're doing that at Mississippi. But now you don't need to have extra blockers for every run. If you want to shift those guys to the left, that actually opens up the right side, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Because then you get matchups where it's you have fewer people that are able to even be in a position to make the play, versus you're running into a crowd. I don't know why we keep running into crowds every decision that they make in terms of play.
Other than Tommy Walker, who had great vision today.
Very good vision.
I mean,
Good patience, good
he's
vision.
back
how
and
many
healthy
yards
soon.
did he end up with?
160.
Let's see, I got it right here. 146.
146, and then he barely saw the field in the third and fourth quarter, which
I
he
think
got hurt.
He got hurt. Yep.
I don't
Well,
know. It's there's a lot to be. It's a lot to be concerned about. I'm pretty nervous, especially going into this week against an OSU team that's trending upwards. We'll talk a lot about it in the middle of the week for sure, but
Yep.
it sucks when everything that we've been worried about it comes to fruition and the way it did today.
It seems a lot like 2021, where
I said the same
we were
thing.
9-0.
I said the same
going
thing.
into that Baylor game, but we had serious problems especially the last like 3 or 4 games of that run, where we kept pointing out what we're doing isn't good enough to be sustainable if we don't fix things, even though we're close and all that kind of crap. And then today it looked the same way. We talked about it last week after we didn't feel that great about the UCF win, and then we were hoping it was just a post-Texas celebratory, we just weren't ready to come back out and play again. And then today, as we were driving in, the line opened at 10 last week, and then it was at 9.5 pretty quick. And then as of last night, it was 8.5. And then as we were driving to the stadium, it was 7.5. And then I checked it about 5 minutes before kickoff, and the line was at 7. So the big money guys in Vegas knew something was up, and we didn't.
Yeah.
We knew we had to execute, and we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. We fulfilled the
And it's even like in
letters.
It's when you come back from 14 points down, and you take a 7-point lead. I expect a team to say I would have expected us to take the game over. Mm-hmm. It's like you go on a 21,
and we thought it was going to happen. When
21 points unanswered.
Yeah, and we thought the rain delay would be really good for us, and it seemed like it was. That it really.
I want to go on record saying I didn't think so, because we've always had problems with rain delays.
Well, I think that. I mean, that's like saying we always have problems with teams that wear purple or something. It's not. It can't possibly be relevant. But with the rain delay here, I think the logic is they were really hyped up. Things were working in their favor, and then this just took the wind out of their sails, threw a wet blanket on it.
A third of the fans left.
Third of the fans left.
Yep.
It's going to be real demotivating for them. And we came out. It gave us a chance to make adjustments. It gave us a chance to get smart. And I think defensively, more so than offensively, we did that. And then after we go 21 unanswered, we falter.
Yep.
And
We
we
gave up
don't.
a field goal, right? Was it 21-17 at
21-17
at
going
halftime?
into half, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, gave up that field goal right at the end. So I don't know. It's very worrisome. It seems like Bedlam's coming at maybe the worst possible time for us, based on where we are and the injuries and the
And how they're
lack
playing.
of identity and then how well they're playing. So that's going to be a big challenge. It'll be interesting to see if it is as big a challenge as Kansas was for us today. I'll be really surprised if it's not. I think it'll be a bigger challenge. This is a team that beat Kansas, so you've got to expect it's going to be very, very difficult.
I don't know if our guys are going to know what to do playing a 2:30 game.
That's true. It is going to be
I
a
don't know if I'm
2:30
gonna know
game,
what to do
so that's
playing
going to
a
be kind of
2:30 game.
different.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll work in our favor somehow. It's better than a night game. A night game would have been very much against the away team.
I'm gonna have to.
in terms of enthusiasm.
It does look like I'm going to that game. Don't know about y'all,
TBD.
but I
Doubtful,
may have
but
to.
Looking less and less likely.
That may have to be one where I watch it on mute because of those stupid paddles on the wall. That's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad after they first started doing that, the Big 12 made them stop doing it during the plays.
Yeah,
But it's so awful to hear on TV.
it is very frustrating.
Well, they're a high school team, so.
They are a high school team. We played and lost to a high school team today.
We did.
Yep.
And that stadium, that fan base,
joke.
that this I could go on and on and on about it. And this is not sour grapes. I was saying it before the game. It's not. We need to get out of this rinky-dink league. It is really frustrating, and we need to be on to better pastures. But we got to play better. We got to play better to just do well in this league, much less worry about what we're going to do when we're in the more difficult SEC.
Yep.
Well, we'll be back with a midweek pod to discuss all of this and more. Looking forward to where we are in Bedlam. Maybe we'll have cooled off a little bit then, and we can have a different perspective. Maybe we'll learn something that gives us a little more optimism. I don't know. Again, thank you to our title sponsor for the postgame pod, Tobacco Exchange. Anything else to share?
I'm ready for this day to be over.
I am
Yep.
too.
Sports
Well,
suck.
I'm ready for better times. Boomer.
Sooner.